In alignment with lifestyle design, I've gotten some sun today. I'm outside in nature, breathing fresh air. I've had my bare feet on the ground. And it's been relatively silent, though there has been the sound of some chainsaw or grass cutting device off and on. And I can hear some people talking about movies or something over yonder. But this seems like a good enough spot as any to talk to myself a little bit. Getting to know the sounds of this place, the scurries of the lizards and the different birds that sometimes I see, but usually just hear. And I don't know the names of any of the birds, even if I did see them. So it's a space of appreciating all of that without having to name it. I was watching a couple of my videos from early January, and that was before I had that crisis. And it was interesting because I did seem like I was in a pretty perceptive state, and I even predicted things like saying, usually when I get to this place, that's when things go downhill. And that's what happened. And I don't really know what I want to talk about because I'm not really in this place of talking to myself a lot and editing and then extrapolating new things to talk about. But I did write down that it seems like our own pharmacist, in a way, is the sound of our own voice. So the sound of our own voice can create chemicals inside that are not good, emotions, or which comes first, the emotion or the thought, or I guess perhaps they arise together. Who knows? But it just goes along with how self-dialogue can maybe unfold some of those chemical structures, those complex thought, emotion, scars. I don't know if that's true, but... And I was reading this book and it talked about somebody who experimented with wearing a blindfold for a week so they couldn't see. And they said that they could hear a lot better and feel touch a lot stronger as well. And I was thinking about the brain in terms of how I feel in map consciousness. It's almost like putting a blindfold on the ego temporarily. So then other sensitivities that the brain has besides seeing with the ego or judging and observing through the ego are amplified. And I was also thinking about map consciousness as downloading new software. So the state of mania is like the software download or the free trial. But if we really want to use the software, we have to learn to use the software a lot of times if it's a certain program. So in my mind, in a way, there's like this download in consciousness, but unless we learn to use the software, it's just software sitting on our brain hard drive and not doing anything. And I feel like when we're labeled and diagnosed, it's like having a trial version and then never paying for the full version of the software because we're told that software is bad, whereas we really like that software. But it's like being told that software is a virus. But really, the software is good software, but it just takes some practice and care and attention to be able to utilize it fully. In a way, it's like antivirus software. It's like our ego thought structures are viruses, and then all of a sudden the universe gives us this big antivirus download, and we just never fully complete the scan and elimination of the viruses. Instead, we add in new viruses that say that we want some of those viruses back, which is called labeling, diagnosis, and recovery. And I feel like our perceptual apparatus, our perceptual field, is our most precious asset. And I wonder what the path of perception is. And how do we approach what's right in front of us? Do we approach it with our beliefs and judgments, or with silence? And I wonder, how do we create with time instead of spend time? I might have said that already. I don't even know. That's the thing. If I'm not doing this as part of my living process, I'm not attuned to that. I don't know. And I wonder how we can go from being labeled as defective to being effective and affecting things. And can we go from serious and persistent mental illness to serious and persistent happiness? I wonder how we walk in a world of so much meaning amongst structures of society that are meaningless. The trouble is, once one is acquainted with seeing meanings, one can see the structures of society as meaningless, and then what? I'm on the email list for Dr. Kelly Brogan, and she sent out her new blog post that says, "Tapering off psych meds, the new awakening." And that sort of reminded me again about my wish to be able to operate with the new software without extra chemicals, chemical medications. And I don't know if it's possible. Again, I have to design my life without the stresses in order to see if it's possible, or at least while I'm tapering, have that scenario while my brain is adapting to not having that as a safety net. It's like a chemical safety net. I know somebody who's not doing much of anything for several months while tapering off or after being fully off. And that seems like a good idea. I feel like so-called psychosis is almost like drowning in thought. Thoughts are turned up in volume and intensity and number and speed, and when that gets to a scary point, it's almost like drowning in it. And then so-called symptoms are just symptoms of drowning in thought, drowning in sound, having all those sounds that have no relevance to the moment now, interfering with the now to such an extent that one is drowning in those sounds and not able to participate in the material light realm that is happening. And I don't know if that's exactly true, because in a way I also feel that one is sort of processing old energies for more than just themselves. It's like those sounds of other times and places are running through their nervous system like they're tuned into those frequencies. And in a way, it's to inform us. It's saying, look what has happened, look what's happening, look what could happen as a result of all these sound thought structures. And yet, we never move away from it, even though so much of that process is impersonal and shows that that structure is of an impersonal nature and has been programmed and passed down and inherited throughout the generations. And we have access to all of it. I also realized in a way that sound or thought is direction. Thought is direction, it's guiding us and we're guided by those sounds, but in a way, sound is direction. Any sound is guiding our perception in terms of judgments and preconceived notions. And when we're listening with no sound vector, with silence, then when we do make sound, it's from a different quality. And I wrote this blurb: we carry old light sound with us. Why do we replay that? Why do we play with that? We play with old light because we're afraid to be nothing, have no image, and thus allow the light to play through us. We become an instrument of that light. Dun, dun, dun. And life transforms light into matter and sound. Life is required to translate the light of the sun into matter and sound. Not that matter creates life, but life is the program that transforms that. And in a way, too, the reverse process is true. Life can transform matter and sound into light. I'm making this video because I'm wondering if you can hear those little bugs. I was walking somewhere else to edit my video, and then I found myself amongst this swarm of these little annoying bugs that always seem to follow you when you walk through them. They even seem to purposefully swarm us, but there's some mating on my finger. Where are they? There they are. So I'm not sure why they like swarming people, even when the swarm is over there, and then you're walking by and they just want to swarm. But I didn't know they made such a noise, because usually it's noisy, so the background of the noise blocks out these subtle noises of nature that we never get to hear. And I think that thought does the same thing when we always have these thoughts going on. It's noise and we can't hear these subtle things. It's noise in addition to the noise that's actually happening in physical reality. Through cars and trucks and everything. They're not done yet. So I'm wondering when I edit this if you'll be able to hear the sound. And earlier I walked over to a stream and it had dried up. And I had been putting my feet in the stream and calling it live streaming. There's all the bugs. But anyways, it was dry, so it was quiet because the stream wasn't streaming. And all I could hear were the bees and the flies. And I could hear them constantly buzzing as if there were a nest. But there was no nest anywhere. It was just that it was so quiet that every little bee within the vicinity I could hear at the same time. So it was additive that way. But it was almost like hearing a stream of bees and flies as opposed to the stream. I wonder if it's good to attune the brain to some of the high frequencies in nature, like these little fly buggies doing their thing. In a way, the sound they make is almost more fundamental because it's part of their relationship. They're dancing to their own music. They're just having a party. It might seem kind of odd to purposefully stand in the middle of a swarm of these little bugs that don't bite. Actually, when I was hearing the buzzing earlier of the bees, I had this sense that whoever wrote that song, that bumblebee song, like Flight of the Bumblebee, would have had to be somewhere quiet enough to hear this. And probably in that time there was more instances of that quiet to hear nature and its own little symphony. So I guess I'll find out if you can hear this sound. If not, I highly recommend it. I wonder why they like to follow me. Or people in general. Actually, it looks like there's just zillions of them. So they're not necessarily following me, it's like, that's all I can see is those bugs for many, many yards or meters. Oh, and I can hear this little animal that likes to eat these weed-looking plants. But I've yet to spot it. But I see the weeds shaking and then toppling over and then disappearing as there's a crunching, munching. I just heard it again, but I'm not sure what that little creature is yet. There's a bug on my screen. He wants to come with me.